Hey guys, this is Illusionist Jason Bishop. I'm back with another piece of magic. In this case, we check out Doug Henning's bumps. Well, you'll see what I mean in a second. Before we get started, I've been a professional illusionist since back when you could buy gas without first checking your account balance. I've performed for colleges and theaters across the United States, been featured on national and international television, and had 2 successful runs in New York City. And now in between shows and rehearsal, traveling, working on new magic, and taste testing licorice, I pull up videos like this and I give you some thoughts on them as a professional illusionist. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, a wondrous illusion. Things that go bump in the night.
Alright, there's other clips of this illusion of Doug Henning performing this piece, and there's not as much dancing in some of those other clips, and I almost picked that, frankly, but the reason I picked this is because this is really old. It's from probably the 70s, maybe the early 80s. I think it was shot on film. It was for one of Doug's, it wasn't a special, it was actually a video version they did of the magic show that brought him a lot of success. I mean, he was like parodied on SNL back in the day. We have a lot to thank Doug Henning for, but it took me a long time, frankly, to appreciate Doug Henning. It was pretty much before my time. The hippie stuff was kind of going away when I was a little kid. There was very little of it. It was sort of a relic. And so I never really got into Doug Henning, frankly. But when you look at the magic that he did, how much great magic he did, how much we have to thank him for. Again, he was the first person, I believe, to perform the origami illusion. Jim Steinmeier, who's one of the greatest brains in magic, period, used to work under Doug Henning's, office roof as such. He had Willie Kennedy. So we have a lot to thank Doug Henning for. So you do have to look past some of the silly, very dated performance aspects of it being a 70s kind of a thing. But this was really cool. And nobody really did this many big illusions in a show. Doug sort of brought that back in. It hadn't been seen in years. So when you look at this guy and you think, oh, that's so passé and that's so old school, he was kind of a visionary, frankly, at the time. And so you have to think about that. If you ushered something new in the way David Blaine did with his street magic, close-up magic, that's a whole new genre that's created that way. And that's what Doug Henning in part did. He ushered in this idea that magic could be young and exciting and relevant and hip at the time, as they called it back then, cool as such. And so we have Doug Henning to thank for that, but it is pretty antiquated. But this illusion is a particularly good illusion. It's not seen that much anymore, unfortunately, but it is a great illusion, and people should be doing this piece of magic, and you don't have to do it exactly like he's doing it by any means, but let's get right back into it. The other thing about Doug, his presentation wasn't cynical, it was joyful. He loved magic and he loved performing it for people. He could be a serious guy and he was certainly disciplined and dedicated to his craft, but performing magic with so much joy affects you a little bit. You puts a little bit of a smile on your face because the dude is so joyful in his presentation. All right, here we go. Doug really hits that like note at the end with the music. There's probably a live orchestra there. I'm really kind of taken by the quality of this video. The clarity is really there, frankly. Most things like taken from VHS back in the day get that like squiggly, deformed line at the bottom, and it's very grainy and not super clear. This is pretty good, frankly. I mean, that's why I wanted to show you guys this. That's a great illusion. It's called Bumps in the Night. I don't know the full lineage of that particular piece. I think it's sort of public domain at this point. You know, you can perform it if you want to as such. There's different methodology to accomplishing that piece. I'd love to see somebody bring it back. Maybe I'll do a version one day myself, frankly, and bring it up. I believe Copperfield did a version of that as well in one of his specials. Quite a few illusionists have done it. Jonathan Pendragon did a version with it as well. It's just a great illusion. It's big, it has scope, you know, obviously. There's that great surprise. One of the figures underneath there is the magician at that point, which is just a great kind of messes with your mind quite a bit. And then at the end, you know, depending on the box that you have, you open up the box and then there's some sort of a kicker in there. Maybe that's an animal, a tiger or something like that. Maybe it's multiple people, whatever it is. In this case, there was a narrative in Doug's show, the magic show, that he was a young magician auditioning against an old crotchety magician who was quite cynical, and Doug was this young, hopeful new guy who obviously had jeans and a cool outfit for the time. I mean, I do like that he's wearing Adidas shoes there, which I also wear quite a bit, so, you know, he was even ahead of his time in that way. I don't think there were a lot of young magicians at this time wearing jeans on stage until, you know, Doug came in as such and ushered that in, and magic could be a little bit more chill and relaxed a little bit. You didn't have to have a tuxedo. Even when I was first coming up in magic, you know, the normal advice was like, you need to have a tuxedo to properly be doing magic. And, you know, most of the time that's ridiculous. I was like 14, 15 years old and these guys are telling me to wear a tuxedo, and of course I did, which is insane. You know, it's not really the greatest advice. Now, you can look nice, that's for sure. You can wear a shirt or a suit jacket or something like that if you want, but honestly, you should wear what you're comfortable with. And will you be commercially successful? Will you not be? Who knows? But it's your art and you have to do what you're comfortable with and what your audience is comfortable with. I have to say, when I watch illusions on stage, I am not usually baffled by them. I'm not usually blown away by them. However, I did see Brad Ross perform something somewhat similar to this, and his show had some really great consultants. Jim Steinmeier did some original illusions for him. Joanie Spina did some of the blocking, and of course we know Joanie Spina worked with David Copperfield, Mark Kalin and Jinger, the Spencers. Joanie, of course, was a very good choreographer and movement consultant for magicians. But anyway, I saw Brad Ross do this thing in New Jersey one time, and he did this whole show. It was very good. And near the end, he did a piece that had some similarities to this. And there was a moment that my jaw sort of dropped, and I had to pause a minute and go over everything in my mind a little bit and go, oh, that's what's happening. I get it now. I know what's happening. I'm okay. But for a second, I was just a regular audience member who was like, what is that? What just happened there? It is a really good piece of magic, and there's different methodology, like I said, and some of them can completely blow people away. That is a strong piece of magic, and obviously you need a couple people to help you with it there. He had the people moving the box, he had the people who, you know, came out of the closet at the end and stuff. I do love this piece. It was a lot more popular when I was coming up in magic in the 90s. The Pendragons did it, David Copperfield did a version. It sort of has a kind of a metamorphosis aspect to it, the fact that that last figure turns into the magician like that. You know, that's a really, really great, strong kicker. Because imagine, you know, as if you were doing a trick with a coin and you take a quarter and you go like this and it turns into an English penny or whatever. That's great, except that you're doing this with a person on stage. It's a very large object, and you can see that the form is underneath there, and we know that this is this third mystery form, and now the magician has vanished though, and that form that's been sitting there takes the cloth away, and now it's the magician. It's just a great piece of magic. Do look up Doug Henning stuff, because the dude did awesome magic. He was a super skilled magician. He was the first magician to get a grant from Canada, from the government of Canada, to go and actually study magic. He really petitioned for this and worked hard, because they were only giving it to musicians, actors, people like that. And so he got a grant to go to Hollywood, California, and study with Di Vernon, the professor. A lot of great close-up magicians who are a little bit older today studied at his knee and were, you know, nervous when they had to perform for him first, and would take a pilgrimage to the Magic Castle to meet Di Vernon and hopefully learn something from him, etc. So, but Doug actually got the opportunity to study directly underneath Di Vernon. So anyway, I love that illusion, Bumps in the Night. You know, check out other versions of it. If you can perform your own version, then go for that, because it is a great illusion. So thank you guys for watching this video. I appreciate it. If you liked it, please destroy the like button. If you'd like to see more, then hit subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when new videos are released. And we'll see you in the next one.